Dispelling dangerous myths in health and wellness each and every Monday with Dr. Anthony G. Beck. Brought to you by Biohacker Labs. Warning, side effects may include more energy, deeper sleep, better memory, resistance to bullshit, and more cash in your wallet. Consult Dr. Beck with any questions.
Welcome to another episode of Mythbusting Mondays. And today we are tackling
Detoxing.
That's right. Everyone seems to be in the mode to detox and clean themselves up, which is awesome. But there are some important caveats that we're going to dive into, and Dr. Beck is going to navigate through this craziness of what's right and what's wrong. So let's drop some truth bombs and get things rocking. Sound good, Dr. Beck?
What's happening, guys? Let's talk detoxification.
Yep.
Detox, not like Hollywood detox where you disappear for a few weeks and you come out of it with a TV show.
That's a whole new episode.
Whole other thing. Well, the thing about it is there is a principle out there of detoxification. Now, the one premise is this: we do live in an absolutely polluted world. It is dirty. That's not French for dirty. That's just straight up how we say it. It's dirty. So we got all kinds of nasty stuff out there, of course. A lot of it is contribute to one of my favorite enemies of the state. And so the thing about it is I do want people to understand that it is a terrain that we have to take a look at, that we're surrounded by, and then how that terrain actually comes inside of our internal terrain. So the key here is also to understand that we do need to detox, okay? There's a lot of controversy out there from the naysayers and conventional medicine thinking and stuff that people who detox are crazy, don't need to detox, like everything is like what they think like the lady parts are, and that it's a self-cleaning oven. And guess what, guys? Our bodies are not self-cleaning. That's why we need to bathe. Our entire body is designed to detox itself. That's why we have wax coming out of our ears and tears out of our eyes and snot out of our nose and saliva out of our mouth and sweat out of our armpits and things out of our bowels and out of our... Whoo! I mean, all we do is excrete things, okay? But it comes at a cost, right? So we're going to get into that just a little bit. So moving forward here, what I want to do is also bring you to an understanding that you have to do it with some caution, okay? Because not all things are necessarily clear to the uninitiate or those who might not have gone through detoxification with a clinician who's mindful of all the interconnectivity of the body, okay? So I know for me, and after practicing functional medicine now for 2 decades, I have detoxified thousands and thousands and thousands of patients, and I've learned a lot along the way. Well, they've taught me a lot of way. And what it is that their environments are all different. Their story is different. What they're detoxifying is different. Whether you live in the steel mill area of Pennsylvania, or you're down in the swamps of Florida, or if you're in the mountains of California and getting all kinds of, everybody has a little bit different picture. So we have to look at detoxification with certain things of individuality based upon your own unique environment stuff, and take that stuff into consideration. It's not so simple as what we see here is the types of detoxes that people turn to out there. So let's take a look at some of those. And so when it comes down to it, some people are thinking which way to go. But let me give a caveat. There is a difference that I like to produce, that there's a difference in cleansing and detoxifying. Okay, so one of the examples I like to give my patients is if you've ever gone into one of those self-serve car wash kind of places, you can take that power hose and you can cleanse the heck out of that car. I mean, you can blow off mud and dirt and rocks and bug guts and stuff splattered on things. But is that detoxing? No, it's not. Now, number one, that's just on the outside of the car, right? And just like you could vacuum the inside of a car, that doesn't clean the carpet. And even if you blow off the outside of a car with a whole lot of water, and even if it's soapy, you still have to take a rag to it. In other words, there are deeper levels of doing it. So I like to make this like the cleansing is defined as the ongoing a hygiene or dietary hygiene that we do on a day-to-day basis, eating things that will help to clean us. It's just like around our house, we keep it clean on a daily or weekly or weekend basis or whatever. But every now and then, we have to do the good old-fashioned, like Mom taught us, get down on your hands and knees and do what we call the spring clean, where you get into things, you move back from behind the refrigerator, you get the dust bunnies out, all kinds of things like that. So there is a difference in cleansing and detoxifying, but most of the time out there amongst the noise and confusion in the info space, people use these two terms interchangeably, and that's a huge mistake to do that. So hopefully we're going to clear this out just a little bit more. Okay, so let's look at the next thing here, where we're taking a peek at what people tend to forget. And that is that all the body systems are connected, right? So I have imaged here, of course, our lovely liver. I always ask my patients, I'm like, hey, Dr. Beck, hey, have you loved your liver today? And so we really want to be mindful that there are just so many pathways that are connected to the effects of how, like, say, the liver, which is connected to all detoxification channels, affects everything from our thyroid to our brain to our urogenitary area and the things that make us male and female parts, right? The intestines, even the skin and our heart, they're all influenced, talked to, and somewhat regulated by what's going on in the liver. So that big old filter and that huge biology, chemistry lab needs to be realized that it's kind of silly to think that it's just going to just self-clean on its own. Over time and overburden, it's going to be just like your car. It's going to take on damage. You have to change the oil, okay? No matter how good you drive and things like that, there are things in the body that are going to need stimulatory periods of time to induce it to detoxify, okay? So what do we turn to? The thing that we want to do is, of course, first and foremost is food. But let's go on to the next slide here and take a peek at I think what we oftentimes see people doing is thinking, okay, well, I'm going to start detoxing. And they're like, all I got to do is just take this juice, take this pill, this powder, do this, do that, and then the toxins just go away or are just dealt with. Well, that's another big myth out there. You have to think, okay, great. If you're going to remodel your house, you're going to make a bunch of construction waste. If you're not prepared to deal with that dumpster in the front yard, you're going to have a problem. And then here, if you mop the floors with dirty water, you're not going to get a clean floor. You're just going to be moving dirt around. And if you do, heaven help you, get all the dirt up and get into this mop, what are you going to do with that stuff? You don't want this hanging out, right? You don't want to mop up the floors and then leave this dirty, soppy, virtual mop here just sitting in the closet or down in the basement. It's going to get funky, and there's going to be repercussions of doing that. So you want to make sure that when you're approaching detoxification, that you are taking a lot more things in mind than most people do. This is just not a self-lubricating mechanism by just taking a few things, okay? So let's move on here. The thing also is when it comes to it, people are going to turn to and be suckers for some of the things that are out there in the market. Okay, now one of the things about me is I'm very open-minded. I believe in the adage that it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. But let me tell you something. One of the ways that you can determine if you are working with a competent individual in sharing with you the ideals of detoxification, if they want to try to put herb poultice patches on your feet to detoxify you, if they want to tell you to stick your feet in these little baths with this little magical electrode, you need to turn around and you need to leave, okay? Because I'm going to tell you something right now, unequivocally, those are absolutely non-beneficial. It is a dog and pony show. It's a smoke screen. There is no therapeutic or detoxification value to those whatsoever. Neither are these brightly colored bottles that just have a label print on that says detox. So if somebody goes, okay, well, we're going to throw some dandelion root in here, maybe some burdock or some milk thistle, maybe a little bit of N-acetylcysteine, or some sulfur groups or some methyl donors, and you give it a nice Kool-Aid color like that and stick it in a nice polystyrene or bisphenol bottle, how the heck are you going to be detoxifying, right? We don't clean with dirty water. We talked about that. Yeah. So again, don't fall for those. And then the power is oftentimes in herbs and botanicals to detoxify the body, to stimulate the body to move blood flow, to move bile salts, to do all kinds of channels, right? To basically be the literal detergents and soaps within us. But you can't get it in a little tea bag.
Okay. So I got a quick question. So is this a labeling issue? Are we talking this isn't detox, but this is more of like a cleansing thing that could happen?
It's none of the above. None of these things right here are going to cleanse nor detoxify you.
Okay.
They're not. Okay, you can't detox out the bottoms of your feet. Okay, and it's just not going to happen. I'm going to explain to you why here in just a little bit. Okay, so the thing is then it's about dose. Okay, it's like if somebody goes, oh, here, well, I fed the hungry by going around and giving them all, a peppermint candy. Well, that was food. It had energy, but is that really feeding somebody? So the thing is you can't take these little bags of these little herbal teas. If you want, because they're flavorful and they taste good and they kind of beef up the water, and you want to kind of look at them as just maybe as a little cleansing type of compound going through there in circulation, that's fine. But don't think that if you do these every day that you're actually detoxing over time. It just can't happen. Those who practice herbal medicine or botanical medicine, however you want to term it, and even in Chinese medicine, we weigh out grams of herbs in order to get a therapeutic dose. You're not going to get it from just steeping in a little infusion of about 5 or 10 grams of herbs. The other thing is then that a lot of people, a real famous one out there is the cayenne pepper, lemon juice, and maple syrup, or they call it the master cleanse. There's a lot of problems with that. Number one, it's not inducing all the channels of the body that we eliminate waste. So it's by default, in my definition, not detoxifying. It might have a cleansing action, and it does have some principles that are applicable. But I don't want people to walk away who change their diet for several days and basically starve themselves and go this direction and lose some weight, which is another topic, to think that they effectually detoxified their organ tissues and cells. It's just not happening, okay? So those options right there are not the way to do it. It's a little bit more complicated than that, okay? So next slide, and we're going to take a peek at another thing is that I want people to realize that food is medicine. Food is the answer, okay? That is what we want to consume on a day-to-day basis. The foods that you should be eating for their nutritional value, their nutrients, right? All the phytonutrients, the chlorophyll, the minerals, the trace elements, the enzymes, these things that we actually get from plants, namely vegetables. The thing is that these are going to help the body keep clean, and you still have to have a ton of them in order to induce detoxification from all systems. But the key here is that why not take in something that helps to cleanse, but at the same time deposits nutrients? Because I'm going to show you here in a minute why detoxification is highly predicated upon nutrients. Your body depends on it, not just independent compounds that might be in some of these sacks of herbs or different things like that. It's the actual nutrients themselves. Now, are the nutrients in abundance in these herbs, and can that help their mechanism of action? Sure. But most herbs or natural things that we're going to be taking in are effective because they have compounds in them to induce detoxification pathways and biochemicals because they don't exist in our food, right? So we do need to turn to them. But at the same time, we can't eat them all the time because then that can overtaxation the body by trying to clean it all the time. Like, for instance, I see people wanting to take things like echinacea or golden seal or different roots to detox. Well, herbs are medicine, okay? They are not food, right? And they're not something that you're going to take longevity-wise, going on and on and on and on. They have physiological function of upregulation and downregulation of countless pathways of biophysiology, and I've seen them just wreak havoc on hormones, and inflammatory states in the body because it can weaken it. In other words, if you clean something too long, you sit there and keep rubbing, you'll rub the paint off of something, right? So you keep putting these cleansing things through the body, and it really can degrade the quality and robustness of some of your chemicals that are supposed to exist in the blood. Okay?
What about adaptogenic herbs? Or?
Well, see, and that's just it. Adaptogenic herbs are specific for their function of working on the systems that help us to adapt to stressors of our environment, okay? Not all herbs are detoxifiers or cleansers. In Chinese medicine, we classify herbs by what channels they introduce into, right? Some are going to go into the liver channel, some are going to the heart, some will go to your adrenals and different things like that. So adaptogenic herbs are beneficial to adapt you to certain situations as needed. But what you don't want to do is consume adaptogenic herbs every day, all day, in the absence of stressors.
Yeah, so basically it's like too much of a good thing is not really a good thing.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's it. Cool. All right, so let's keep going.
Okay.
All right.
Great question. So the thing is people also have to realize that there is an energy and biochemical economy in the body. There literally is business exchanging hands. I mean, there is a currency. Now, most people talk about the currency of adenotriphosphate, ATP, and that all that kind of fun stuff, and the electron chain transport, yada, yada, yada. So we're kind of seeing that here. But at the end of the day, though, these are all mechanisms and economies and exchanges and wheels and machines that require nutrients. They need lubrication. They need effort. They need something to be paid for that. These are enzymes and coenzymes and catalysts and spark plugs, okay? So these all have to be taken into consideration. So if you start up-regulating a cog in a machine and start cranking it more than the other ones are prepared, lubricated, or repaired to be able to do, you're going to cause a breakdown in the machinery. And the body can be looked at the very same way. There is an energy that has to be paid in order to fuel these things. So if you are hitting that gas pedal and telling that engine to rev harder, crank that shaft more, and if you don't have enough coolant in there and you don't have enough lubrication and your oil level's low, you're going to throw a rod. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the body is very similar like that. We want to always prepare the body for detoxification. That's why I'm going to talk to you a little bit later that detoxification is always last on the list. So let's keep looking here. Mm-hmm. So one thing also is that I want people to take home that everything is not just, I talk about static or free or without influence on stuff. So where detoxification oftentimes goes wrong, and this fact right here is why a lot of people miss. Now, if you've seen as many patients as I have, you hear people say, well, I started detoxifying and I had a cleansing reaction or a Herxheimer reaction, or things got worse before they get better. That's another indicator of a clinician who doesn't understand or embrace the interconnectivity of systems. If they tell you, oh, don't worry, just keep giving more, and you're just cleansing reactions. Well, that's because people don't realize that what they should have done is had a preparatory season, regimens over time based upon the individual patient that nourished them, built them up, made them replete with all these nutrients that are needed to undergo detoxification. When we skip that step and we just get right to the romantic crescendo of the movie and start detoxing, this is where you're going to have problems. And when you do that, remember, things come at a cost. Your body detoxifying channels, right, are needed for all kinds of things. Daily production and assembly of hormones, of amino acids, building our DNA and doing things like that, right? So most people don't realize that toxins that come into our body when we don't have the presence of cleansing or supporting foods in our diet over time, because we live at the speed of life, and oftentimes we do that, especially towards the end of the year, and the seasons all the way from October to February, which is what I call the sweet time of the year, not because of all the vulnerable holidays, but because of all the daggum sugar and libations that people consume. But toxins from pesticides and petrochemicals and all things. These are all fat-soluble toxins, okay? And the body likes to encapsulate and save them and store them in our fat tissue, okay? And the thing about it is it's doing that to save us in a way. It's just like whenever the body gets hurt, it swells up, or you get a cyst or big fibroids around things. We're going to get more on that in just a second. It's a mechanism of the body preserving itself. But the thing is if we start to detoxify the body, you must do it in such a way that properly induces something called your cytochrome P450 enzymes. Okay, these are hard-coded into our individual DNA. Some of us, like me, have a single nucleotide polymorphism in some of these cytochromes. In other words, it's an error in its enzyme function. I don't have the ability to necessarily detoxify certain things very well through my 2D6 channel and my 1B1. not to get all techie on you here, but that just means, like, for instance, for me, I don't process caffeine very well. A sip of coffee or a cup of coffee, and let me tell you something, I am wired. Boing! Some people, like my wife, she can have 10 cups, and she's like, what? I don't understand why people even drink coffee, because it doesn't do anything for me. It's odd. It's based upon how we detoxify. But, like, for instance, if I eat a grilled hamburger and I induce in the body to start detoxifying that grilled charred black stuff, that's an enzyme, right? Then it's also cleared out caffeine is also cleared out by that same enzyme. So by putting a certain toxin, grilled charred food, into my body, it upregulates this cytochrome, which also detoxifies coffee. So I can eat a charbroiled meat or steak or coffee or something like that, and I can have a double espresso, and it's nothing like having a cup of coffee. It's pretty cool. So we can manipulate these, but what this tells me is that when the body is trying to pull toxins from fat soluble over to water soluble so we can excrete them through our bowels and through our kidneys, it has to go through a process. And they end up, first of all, taking this mid-change area and becoming what we call intermediary metabolites. If you take things out of storage, if you will, by detoxifying the body, it requires all kinds of nutrients: vitamin A, vitamin B3, B6, folate, B12, glutathione, certain amino acids, flavonoids, and phospholipids. They're the ones actually doing the work. These are the enzymes. These are the sparks. These are the governors that make this system work. Remember that economy I was talking about? But if we start pulling them out, and then they get stuck here in these intermediate metabolites, like they can't keep going down the assembly line like the old Lucille Ball and the candy factory line, right? They will get stuck here, and these chemicals are 10, 20, 30-fold more potentially damaging to the body than if you just would have left them dormant, stuck in their nonpolar lipid prison cells. So this is where we get secondary tissue damage and reactive oxygen species, and really wreak havoc on our DNA and systems and hormones. So if you're not doing detox correctly, in consideration of your nutrient status prior to entering into it, you are going to dynamically increase the bad things that could go wrong in detox. But then we have to be mindful, even while we're detoxing, okay? That, like, for instance, if you're doing like a liver detox or a lymph detox or something like that, where's that trash? Remember that bucket of nasty water we showed earlier? Where's it going? It's going into the bowels. Well, the bowels have to be ready to receive and process that junk out so you can get rid of it. Same thing in your kidneys. So we've got these cytochromes in phase 1 detox. Phase 2 are the different pathways of reactions to deal with these molecules per their individual species. So here's the take home. Detox requires increased nutrient status. It increases your requirement for nutrients, not just the ones that you have for your daily, right? And so it must be approached correctly if we're going to get rid of the trash and not have it get reuptaken in a more volatile form. Okay? All right, so let's keep moving.
So hold on. So basically, like, if let's say the phase 2, as I'm understanding correctly, like everything ends up in our bowel, right? And then if there's the elimination channels are not open, then it kind of just gets stirred up and reabsorbed by our bloodstream again. That's right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So we actually just made matters worse.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And especially if you don't have a correct, healthy microbiome in your gut. When you dump that in there, and the bad guys love it. Right, the pathogenic bacteria and fungal, they love the trash. They're like the pigs, right? They love that crap. Give me the slop. But the good guys, when they're present, your body can actually handle that more. That's actually the ones who are actually the workers doing the reaction. So it's highly do that. And this is where oftentimes we see people, unbeknownst to them, having these reactions of being tired or depressed or emotional. Sometimes people detox, they have emotional releases that all of a sudden they just weep or have nightmares or different things. The body's getting rid of stuff. It wasn't ready or had the capacity to get rid of that stuff. Okay?
And I just want to go through this process one more time just to make sure I have it fully clear. So the detox process, as I understand that, we're gonna go deep into our cells, into our fat tissue, and pull toxins out of that.
Yes, and when you're pulling toxins out of the tissue, we're going to pull them out of a non-polar state.
Right, and that takes certain nutrients to get them pulled out. Once they're pulled out, they're going to get metabolized, which is like a middle step where they get pulled out and then processed to go into that secondary phase of elimination, right?
You got it.
And each phase requires certain nutrients to make that chain happen effectively, and if it's not fully present, then you're in danger.
You got it. It's like cutting down a tree, and you chop it down, and you got to remove the bark. Then you got to cut the boards, and then how you cut those boards depends on if you're going to make shingles or table legs, right? And then along that way, you're going to be kicking off all kinds of sawdust. You're going to be burning up electricity. You're going to be eating up the saw blade sharpness, right? There's a lot of things just to bring something to market is basically it. So same kind of a thing. And then so we want to make sure that we're processing out the byproducts of manufacture.
Yeah, and that one more note on that, it's so it looks like also the toxins, the basically environmental toxins, different pesticides, so they are water soluble. So I mean, because you hear a lot, it's like, oh, just drink more water, you'll flush it out. But if they are not water soluble, you're really not doing anything.
Yeah, and I think we're going to cover that in another Mythbusting Monday. But that's just it. Drinking a whole bunch of water isn't going to do it. Just like you can try to wash your car with that high pressure hose, it's not going to get it done.
Yeah, there's no soap. It's still okay, gotcha.
Drinking a bunch of water helps to flush it out. That increase, need, right? But it's not going to do it in and of itself.
Yeah, this is eye-opening because we had no idea there was this much complexity involved in this. So, good stuff.
It's information dense, and that really doesn't really fit into the noise and confusion soundbite world, right? We want to sell people that little tea bag. Sure. And little foot strips and things like, all you got to do is just soak your feet. Really? Isn't that great? All you got to do is just, hey, send me, $9.95 and I'll give you a college degree. Yeah. So here's the other thing. It also depends upon where you start. So oftentimes in human behavior, we like to measure ourselves against other people. Even though we have totally different DNA, totally different backstories, totally different environments, totally different diets, okay. So it depends on where you start. So don't just look at everybody like, oh, well, Susie at the gym, she detoxed and she lost 6 pounds. And all right. It depends upon where you are. Most people don't know where they are, all right? Mm-hmm. But if the thing is it's the good and the bad. So everybody is needing of detox. I'm just simply a pioneer in saying doing it in the right order, right? And presenting it, based upon your own uniqueness. Mm-hmm. So you need to know that you're going to have environmental toxins coming into the body, say here in your liver, okay? And if you're healthy over time, it can handle those on an ongoing basis, okay? Mm-hmm. But if you're not consuming enough healing, detoxifying substances, right? Or go plants, okay? Because listen, a ribeye steak, love them, okay? I'm not paleo and I'm not a vegan, okay? But a steak does not detoxify the body. Okay, celery and spinach and kale does. Okay, yeah. So you need to consume those things on a daily basis, and that will keep your blood and your circulation going, a healthy immune system, and that leads to health. Okay, but if over time, if you're inflamed, you have a leaky gut, your microbiome is off, and then these same environmental toxins come in, and then they get sent to a sick liver. Okay, you're going to have poor toxic removal. So what is it going to do? It's going to shift it over to the blood, and the blood's going to say, "Hey, listen, let's move it someplace where we can store it." That activates the immune system, gets it inflamed, and it leads to disease. Right? Okay, so if these are the two things on an ongoing basis, you can either be doing it the right way by eating cleansing and healthy things along the way, or you don't. Okay, if you're partying like a rock star and drinking Rockstar and Red Bull and smoking cigarettes and all kinds of other inhalants and fun stuff, and then if you're drinking alcohol and you're not eating healthful plants and things, you're eating an In-N-Out burger, over time you're gonna become the bad category, and then all of a sudden you're gonna want to detox because you're gonna feel the weight of the sins of the world of your diet, and you're gonna go, I want to go cleanse myself of these things. Well, guess what? You can't do that. You have to go back and be where you should have been to begin with and nourish yourself, balance out the body, and then do it. So I call it the repentance process. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, it does.
If when you want to detox, that's great. High five. But don't just jump right to it, especially if you live a lifestyle that is non-conducive to, and the reason why you need to super detox anyhow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's not only lifestyle. A lot of people decide, I'm going to go detox because I just had a week of crappy eating and drinking and doing whatever. Or you go on vacations and you eat everything, right?
Right.
You drink everything and they're like, oh my goodness, now I got to detox. So it's like that is also not
So give yourself a time. Just don't. Okay, I'm gonna party like a rock star on the cruise all the way till Saturday. On Sunday, I start a detox.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I'm glad you mentioned that, Oksana, because that's really super important. I mean, that's the human behavior. These are the stories that my patients have taught me well. And I said, no, you'll get to it. Okay, you can pay off that debt in a little while, but take the next couple weeks, okay, and increase your veggie consumption. Right.
What about the flip side of that, where if someone's like, leading a really clean lifestyle, they're eating a lot of vegetables and grains, and they feel like they want to detox?
Well, then they're clear for takeoff.
And is there human beings that don't really need to detox? Let's say if someone lives healthy lifestyle, don't really have any health challenges, like
not unless you live in a bubble, because we're still breathing air. We're still we have things come through our skin, and you know what? I don't know anybody. I've never met.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I've met some really clean people, but guess what? We're trying to get rid of toxins of the known source, but also of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you don't wait until you see a whole bunch of dust on a surface before you clean it.
Yeah.
Right? You scrub your toilet even though it doesn't have a black ring around it. Right. So in other words, you can be clean, but we all don't know what our levels are. I mean, I can test people if everybody wants to spend a few $100 or $1,000 and you want to know what your PCB levels are, your dioxins and all that kind of fun stuff. I'll tell you that every time and say, well, their levels are low. You don't have to detox. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but who's going to do that, right? Yeah. So it's better just to go and detox and catch systems anyhow. All right. So let's keep moving here.
All right.
This is good, actually, really good conversation. So people should have fun with it. This is just a one brief example of like Tylenol. People are all inflamed. Ow, I got a headache. I got pain. That's probably because you're toxic. And so what do? We take a toxin, which I'm okay with. Listen, I'm not poo-pooey on medication. I think medications are there to help us. But if you go and you take in acetaminophen or Tylenol, it has to go through those cytochromes. Like I said, remember, it's a toxin, right? And so that gets involved. It moves it to this intermediate metabolite, right? And I'm going to get all these names here, but acetaminophen goes here. Then we get this intermediate molecule. And then if the body has enough nutrients, ergo glutathione, right, it will attach to that molecule. It'll get detoxified and the body can get rid of it. If your glutathione status is low and it's depleted, that molecule is going to look for an attachment on certain tissues, and it's going to rock that tissue's world. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So basically, this is just one example of if when toxins come into the body, and especially if we're inducting them to be removed. In other words, we're inducing detoxification pathways. You don't have to tell your body to detox Tylenol. It comes in. Matter of fact, if we ever want to test detoxification in the liver, what I do is I give 3 substances to the patient. And then we do either a blood draw or a urine collection, and generally urine collection, and see how long it takes to go. So like I give a measured dose of Tylenol, acetaminophen, aspirin, and caffeine, because each one of those 3 things actually is a toxin that has a different pathway to be cleared. So I will do a detox challenge on a patient and see if they have a capacity to do it. So I give them a dose of acetaminophen, aspirin, and caffeine, and then we take their samples and see how long it takes for them to actually clear those toxins out. Isn't that pretty cool?
That is really cool.
That is really cool. I love that challenge.
Well, I mean, that's what it is. So some people, we go there, but again, I mean, I can't necessarily, touch the entire world, so I just got to give the love out here and say, listen, these are known substances that are toxins. So listen, caffeine do all kinds of wonderful things for cognition and performance, and yet it does. But guess what? It's a toxin. It's foreign. Okay. That's why it's not in celery, for crying out loud. All right. Neither is all right. So aspirin we got from white willow bark, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we're not eating bark all the time, right? Yeah. So in other words, there are certain things that are foods and certain things that are medicines, and I'm okay with medicines, but just because it's a medicine doesn't account for your own individual ability to process it. Okay, so the take home on this is know that molecules getting removed from the body, especially stimulated to, they must be dealt with. You have to think downstream how to prepare for these upstream imbalances, right? All right.
Yeah, I find it interesting too that there's different pathways to release different things.
Yeah.
Like, like you have a highway and there's different exits.
That's why I love the body, man. How they created it's just super, super cool. That's why you got to get to know it, right? So let's keep going here. When it comes to the body, that's the fun thing also here that most people don't realize. So I talk about let's get physical with detox. So many times people go through a period of time to where their life is kind of rough on their health, and most of the time when I hear about detox, it's from people that don't do it on a regular basis. Honestly, they hear about it or know they've maybe done, I haven't detoxed in years, or I do it once a year. Well, when the body is harmed, it has this interesting mechanism of shoring up itself, and it does it with adhesions. You literally have these fibrotic tissues and adhesions to help stabilize unstable tissue that's been damaged by these intermediate metabolites over time. Okay, just for one example. So one of the things I like to let people be aware of is that when you're detoxing, you also want to physically support the body by doing abdominal massage or going to a massage therapist. I think they're freaking phenomenal, right? There's things that you can do exterior-wise, like skin brushing to get the lymphatics to move. Manual massage of the abdomen and the eliminatory organs like that. Because oftentimes people have reported that as they're detoxing, they're getting these weird little tinges and pulls and cramps and zaps and twings, right? It's like going to the mechanic and saying, what does this chugga 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 ping sound? Well, these are the terms that they've taught me, right? And there's explanations for that. The body literally has and creates these adhesions. And it's just like when your body, when you cut your finger, you see that we have platelets and stuff. And it's actually, if you ever pulled a scab apart really up close, and not to gross everybody out, but you'll see these little fibers, right? That's what the body does when it comes to injury. And toxins can injure internal organs and things like that. We see all kinds of adhesions when we open up the body to remove fibroids and tumors and fun stuff like that. So when you're detoxing, you want to not overly exert yourself by doing high intensity interval trainings or big time Pilates stuff, but things like yoga and Tai Chi and movement and rebounding, walking, getting physical with the body, getting it moving. That's from a motion standpoint, but also from a physical manipulation point. So I really like to put that in there. If you're properly going to detox, remember it's not just swallowing compound A, B, and C. You got to do more to it. Does that make sense?
Lots of sense. And you're moving stuff around by like skin brushing and things too, right? So you're moving toxins around.
Yeah. You're helping move and creating a mechanical and chemical energy in the body by doing so. It's pretty awesome, especially when I talk about water and how it has life and light and energy to it. That's a whole other ball game. So we want to move that stuff. All right, so progressing right down the line here. The thing also is there's a difference between success and failure. And again, we recapped it, but I want to make this more simplified here in a cartoony version, less to look at. Toxins basically are going to go through two steps to get to from a fat soluble state to a water soluble state to get going out of there. Okay, but remember, just like Larry was just talking about, there's different pathways for different things. This is a simplified version. I have a silhouette of the liver in the background. Everything talks to the liver. That's why I said we loved your liver lately. The thing is that it's not the only one. And the thing that we're moving out, remember, okay, are metabolic end products. Just like driving your car, right? You're going to have an exhaust, period. And depends upon how that engine is functioning, whether you're going to have clear exhaust coming out the back and maybe just a little drop of water, or you're going to have black smoke, or you're going to have white smoke. It all depends upon the mixture and what's going on in there. Microorganisms, they're omnipresent. They're everywhere. They're coming in our nose. They're coming in our mouth. Some are actually good for us. Some are not. And we got to kick their butt, and then we got to send their carcasses somewhere. All right. Think about the things that are coming in there. There's all kinds of contaminants and pollutants. We love that new car smell, right? Well, that's just pure toxins, man. Your DNA don't like it. I mean, it smells. That's lovely, right? You can even go and buy that stuff in a can, right? Find me a plant or an animal that exists in nature that smells like new car. You just won't do it, right? So then there's insecticides, not just the ones in your house, but the ones that your neighbors do. Those things get atomized. They come in through cracks of the wall, light switches, light sockets, door hinges. There's all kinds of stuff. If you live in a building, right? Don't think that all those cars parked in the garage just magically don't have any of those chemicals coming up through the hallways and the elevators and all that other kind of fun stuff. You ever get into an elevator and you smell that funk, right? Well, guess what? You just took in some toxins. And if you come up that elevator in your house every day, even though you're eating clean, right? Okay. Then there's food additives, and then there's drugs, and there's alcohol. Okay. So, I want to focus on the love and the sunshine and the light. So just know that those things can be handled. The body is so resilient, right? But just be mindful. Don't fool yourself that is just simply going to be something on your feet, some little drink to drink, or some little tea bag, or some little starvation mechanism for X amount of days is going to get you detoxified. That's the difference between success and failure. Okay? All right, so let's go here. Hopefully we're busting through some myths, and most people are thinking, oh no, I can just take this detox. Well, right? It's kind of crazy. And this isn't the form to give the actual how-to, walk you through it, but it's to get you just realizing there's tons of myths of the thinking out there. Yeah. Here's the other thing, there's lots of channels. Remember I was talking about all those excretions that we have going on? You have your lymphatic system. You've got your skin, your kidneys, your bowels, and even your lungs, right? All of these are detox channels. Okay, so if you're breathing in and smoking burnt, plant leaves of some sort, you're clogging up the lungs' ability to process clean air and to exchange gases. It's super, super important. That's why there's mucus in there, right? That's why when you get sick, the body starts producing mucus in there that you got to hack up, right? It's going, oh, there's bugs in here. What do we do with bugs? Well, we encapsulate them in slime, and then we stick them in the same thing. The body's always trying to encapsulate stuff, mucus and fat, and stuff like that, and try to get rid of it. Same thing in the kidneys, man. All that blood's constantly getting filtered. If you think that you can just keep drinking and not have any what I call botanical or food-based Drano, your kidneys are going to collect little stuff. They're called stones. It all depends upon the pH of the body and what you're feeding through it, right? And people who are not clean and don't detoxify or detoxify improperly are going to have ineffectual filtration in their kidneys, right? So you got to do things in the right order. That's super important, okay? So these particular 5 things that you see before you here are my main ones. When I talk about these, I also include the blood. I just didn't include it in a picture on it, but when I do blood, I generally do lymphatics too. So the lymph system doesn't have a pump of its own, but we all know that that's a highway for dealing with stuff, right? This is how cancer travels the body, right? Gets in the lymph nodes. So it's a cleaning. That's your immune system. That is your internal bathing mechanism. No one ever really gives a lot of love to their lymphatics either, right? But it has an intimate relationship to these kind of things. So the only thing's really missing here is the liver. We've already talked about that in blood. But remember, there's more to it than those. We got the bowels, the skin, the kidneys. Everything needs to be detoxed. If you think you're just going to take one set of herbs and just do one regimen and detoxify, quote unquote, the body, myth. Boom, big busted. Because the things that help the skin detox is not the same for the lymph, it's not the same for the bowel, it's not the same for the lungs or kidneys or the blood or liver. They're all different. Make sense?
Yep.
A lot of sense, yeah.
Cool, man. All right, let's keep going. Fun times, man. Love it. So again, here's the deal. We're going to keep seeing this picture in different formats. I want to talk about the order being critical to your success, okay? So what's this order I'm talking about? Well, the first, if think about it here, just go in reverse order, okay? So it's just like if you ever got a tangle in your hair, ladies can understand this, right? Larry, maybe not so much. Okay? If you got tangles in your hair, you got to detoxify the tangles. You don't start your scalp and start screaming that comb down through. What do? You start at the ends and you brush it, bring it through, and then you get the full flow of, the Rapunzel reaction, right? Okay, so that's what people have to think of in too. I encourage people to, when you want to detox, start thinking about, number 1, nourishing the entire body. Okay? Nourish. Then what you want to do is you want to balance out and start working on getting your bowels right. So you want to work from the bottom up because everything's going to dump to the pooper and the tinkle. All right? So what do you want to detox? Well, you want to do your bowel and you want to do your kidneys. Get those guys ready to receive what you're going to start doing when it comes to the liver, the blood, and the lymphatics, and the other guys. Make sense? Open up the 2 channels that are the main places. See, these aren't the feet, right? You can soak your feet in those little zap pools. I mean, it's just so funny, man. I can't believe there's even people that are still selling that crap. But yeah, so start with your bowels, and then get your kidneys, and then go after, the liver, right? And then go after the blood and the lymphatics, the lungs, and the skin. Make sense? That's the way that you want to do it. Now, there are some little caveats. It's not set in stone. Everybody has a unique thing. It depends upon some other factors. A well-versed clinician should be able to help you determine that specifically. But I will tell you, if you think, okay, listen, the main 2 things that are going to come out is my poop and pee. Those are your main 2 channels every day. You want to work with those. by getting them nutrified, get their chemistry right, get the good bacteria in your body ready to receive this kind of stuff way before you start inducing it with any of these other things. Because as you can see here, man, there are so many nutrients that you need. Now, the cool thing is we can get these from food, right? But at different times, like when I detoxify the bowel, you're never going to detoxify the bowel if you're putting animal flesh through it. It's just not going to happen. You can argue with me all you want, and that's fine. 2 decades, tens of thousands of patients, and lots of detox, I can tell you, you need to create the environment conducive to induce reactions. Okay, it really is a big difference. I love putting those through there. I mean, I'm an omnivore, but at the end of the day, you can't mop the floor with dirty water and expect to do it. You have to change the terrain to get the body to submit to going into detox mode. Right? It's like telling a teenager to get up and do their chores. Right? You gotta. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Any questions on that one?
No.
No.
All right, let's keep going here. We're winding up. So, when it comes to that order, here's what I recommend for my patients. And this is where my program has come into play and where I didn't create Balance Protocol. It was revealed. So it's called Balance Protocol because it is a method to balance our thought, balance our understanding, and balance the way the body can have its highest levels of well-being. Well, the thing is always be thinking whenever you're going through this 2, 3, 5, 8 framework, whenever you think detox, don't be thinking, okay, what do I need to add? Do I need milk thistle? Do I need some N-acetylcysteine? Or do I need this herb or that herb? You also got to think, well, what do I need to remove for this period of time, right? Do you really think you can detox while you're smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day? I mean, that's really not going to happen. So it's not just what you want, what you're thinking, what do I need to add? You need to be thinking, well, what do I need to remove, right? It's not all things can just stay the same and you can keep eating like you do every day, but then just add this little bottle that says, hey, it's a juice detox and you're going to get clean. It doesn't work like that. You got to add and take away. And then you got to think, as you move forward, think of nourishing the body. Get healthful eating in there and get your mind right. Because look, the mind right's hardwired to a lot of molecules in the body. Okay, and I know this because I've seen patients, have emotions and go back to times in their lives that were damaging. When we finally started cleaning their body out, they're like, man, oh my gosh, all I did was have these emotions of the time when I saw my brother drowned. It's odd how this kind of stuff happens. So you want to do mindful work on mindset and gratitude and things of that nature. Even if you're physically detoxifying, don't think that when I talk detox, I'm just talking in the physical. I'm also talking in the mental and spiritual realms. So focus on nourishing the body first, get your lifestyle balanced up, clean up that environment, and then move on to purify, okay? When you're detoxifying, think about the 5 causes of disease. And then these things, don't just, okay, well, I'm just going to detoxify from stress and go on a cruise. Right? It's not going to work like that. You got to think if you're going to detox the body, right? You want to be mindful of getting those nutritional deficiencies, shored up. Think, the stressing part of it. You want to think about getting rid of microbes just as much as food allergies, just as much as toxins, and really move the body through an understanding that we got multiple arenas to detoxify from the body. And then go through the right systems. Just, get your environmental inputs, clean up your environment. What do you got to add or take away from your house, right? Think about the food and stuff like that. So we're not going to go through all of these again. But again, it really has to come down to a framework, a method of approach. And I really want to encourage people to understand the take home here is there's a big difference between cleansing and detoxification. When people, they don't use the terms interchangeably. Detoxification, if you're going to induce that and you truly want that as your goal, understand what it is and that it requires a tremendous amount of nutrients. While you're doing it, you got to take out the woes of the world in your consumption and your environment and set yourself up to properly do it. Okay, you can do that through diet and supplementation. When you're detoxifying, just don't think about one organ system. Don't just think about universal detoxing the body. There are channels. Each one of them has different processes. Each one of them requires different work and engagement. And then when you do going after each one of them, do them in the right order. Start working from the bottom and work your way up.
And what are some symptoms of not detoxing correctly?
Well, all symptoms of inflammation. If you have any type of inflammation, that's a big generic term, right? Inflammation is anything that's inflamed, right? Well, you can see all the way from red eyes to acne to little broken capillaries on the skin, varicose veins, aches, pains, anything that is a signal that your body's trying to rapidly get rid of something. Sneezes, mucuses, coughs, sweats, swollen nodes, right? Nasty earwax, changes in your genital secretions, right? Color, cut, and clarity of what's coming out of your pooper. Pain, tenderness in the body. Look at the health of your fingernails, the health of your hair, right? Your vision, your hearing. All those things they only lose function when they lose competency, and competency is lost through inflammatory processes. Inflammatory processes are induced because of foreign, non-nutritive compounds not being properly dealt with in the body.
Which is a big thing for me, because I always, I always thought that while you're going through a cleanse or a detox rather, you're having to go through these challenges of feeling like shit and
the
headaches, the nausea.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the guilt part of detox. We're thinking, wow, we got ourselves to this crappy place. I'm gonna have to suffer on the way out, right? That's not the case. That narrative only comes from those who don't have proper education and knowledge that the body it loves you. It's dying to love you. It just goes, I'm so forgiving, right? And I'm going to get rid of this stuff. You don't have to. You have to suffer through it. If you're matter of fact, when I'm working with patients and we start having those reactions, I dial back on the detox or stop it immediately. Yeah. And I go back and I do my homework, right? If it's not ready, it's not ready. Right? I know there are some parents out there that go, hey, little Timmy, you're going to learn to swim, and they kick them off the porch, right, into the water, right? Now that's a psychology that some agree with. I think you should start off slowly and teach them the strokes and stuff, and then encourage them. So then you have that. The answer isn't to just force your body into compliance.
Right. So you should feel good while detoxing and cleansing.
Yeah, I mean, you should know that there's a challenge. Think about it like this. It's just like working out. Yeah. Right? If you're working out, that's like leg day. Oh my goodness, doing some squats and your butt and your thighs are burning for a little bit. That's a normal part of it. 2 days later with some delayed, onset muscle soreness when you get the DOMS. Okay, that's your reward. That's like, okay, you did tear me down my tissue. I'm going to rebuild stronger. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to like overly nauseous, quick evacuations out of the bowel, cramps, vomiting, cold and flu symptoms, headaches, migraines, all that stuff, they don't have to be there. You're doing it wrong, and most likely you're inducing a tremendous amount of cellular damage. You need to back up and get back and focus on the 3 phases of balance protocol. Nourish, nourish, and nourish. Then balance the body out, get it ready for it, and then go for purification. I know people love detox, so do I. But in my 8 keys of balance protocol, detoxification, and I call it biotransformation, is the last key. It's certainly not the first.
So that's all we have for this episode of Mythbusting Mondays, brought to you by Biohacker Labs. We're on a mission to open 1 million people's eyes to the real truth about health and optimal wellness. So please help us by sharing this podcast with family and friends. And together we can break free from all that noise and confusion and make the world a brighter place. Remember, each episode comes with a video and slides, so make sure to head over to www.biohackerlabs.com/podcasts to get them, as well as our show notes and some free gifts.
And subscribe to our YouTube channel and podcast to discover more dangerous health myths. We love hearing from you, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have a show suggestion or want us to bust a myth, please email it to us at mythbusting@biohackerlabs.com. See you all next week with a fresh Mythbusting episode.